All right. The last criticism perspective is from what our editor has labeled a prophetic ethic response, and so this is Peter Goodwin Heitzel, Heitzel, I
Uh,
think it's
Heltzel? Yeah, something
helpful.
like that. Uh,
Yeah,
Goodwin, I think, is probably why you want to include it because you're gonna
right.
uh, get your audience on your side. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be good and win. So yeah,
Yeah. And this is a different kind of ethical perspective here. And I think, we've noted in some of the things, you suggested maybe a neo-Orthodox kind of perspective. We'll let the audience kind of see
yeah,
what how they view this particular perspective. And in some ways, and I think he is intending to do this, is he's making people somewhat uncomfortable here with this particular perspective. So
right.
we'll work our way through here and see if we can get through it and understand what he's talking about. So he begins by saying Kallenberg's presentation of virtue ethics is admirable in many ways, right? So again, just like the other two, he praises him at the beginning and somewhat agrees with some of the things he has to say. He gives us four ways that he thinks Kallenberg's presentation is admirable. First, he says that Kallenberg pays close attention to the habit forming process, as he argues for the intentional cultivation of virtuous habits in the lives of Christians. And so apparently that's an admirable thing that Herzl here believes. And second, he argues that virtue is best formed in Christian community, right? A needed emphasis, he says, in our individualistic culture today. Third, so the third kind of admirable quality he suggests here is that Kallenberg makes a persuasive case that if we do not intentionally form habits, they will be formed for us by our consumer-driven technological culture. And so he likes that as part of Kallenberg's presentation. And then fourth, he says that Kallenberg demonstrates that virtue ethics is deeply rooted in the Christian tradition. So those are at least some of the admirable ways that he thinks Kallenberg's presentation was helpful, right? And so, but he that's as far as he gets here in terms of the
Right,
good portion of it. So.
right. And there's a lot of agreement that I have with him there. So let's see how we can destroy that. All right, so drawing on the wisdom of St. Augustine and Isaac of Nineveh, Kallenberg suggests fasting from iPhone usage. Again, we're always talking about cell phone usage here.
There's the iPhone, the cell phone, right?
It's only
Yeah,
the iPhone, so if you're an Android user, you're
yeah, you're
virtuous.
good to go.
Uh,
That's right.
I'm liking this guy more and more every time. So if you suggest fasting from iPhone usage because we are becoming a covetous people, however, he claims, Hetzel here, that an individual abstaining from smartphone usage does not adequately encompass the fullness of Jesus' teaching on fasting and the Sermon on the Mount, a template for prophetic ethics. And so that's one of the things that our editor made sure to focus on when providing a scriptural background to the prophetic ethics. So he goes on to say that he has great appreciation for Kallenberg's virtue ethics, but his central concern is the conspicuous absence of justice in the virtue ethics blinds him from seeing the sufferings of those wronged by injustice. So in the spirit of James William McCalladon, Kallenberg's first and best ethics teacher, he suggests that Kallenberg's virtue ethics can be fortified through a deeper engagement with race as a theological problem in conversation with African American theological ethics. So make sure you have more black authors on your bookshelf, read from those, cite from them, and you'll be more virtue ethics because you're going to be focusing on the pursuit of justice that he believes that Kallenberg is missing in his discussion here.
Right. And so we notice right away that Herzl here is, talking from a background of social justice, perhaps even critical race theory kind of background here, and we'll see that as we go. He goes on to say, in the spirit of this the fourth beatitude, prophetic ethics sees fasting as a pathway to awakening a hunger and thirst for the liberating love and community restoring justice of the God of justice. Right? And he in book quotes Isaiah, or Isaiah is suggesting that fasting has to do with justice, right? And so he says to consider fasting only in order to cultivate personal virtue, he tells us, misunderstands the political dimension of fasting. So, he doesn't think that Kallenberg deals correctly with the political dimension of fasting.
Right. My eyes are focused. They're not rolling right now. So,
right. Well, he gives some illustration. He talks about Martin Luther King fasting, while he's praying in prison, and that was kind of an illustration of the political dimension of fasting. Right.
So while calling for the cultivation of virtues, Kallenberg does not clearly delineate which virtues Christians are called to cultivate, nor does he clarify the difference and relationship between the biblical virtues, things like faith, hope, and love, with the four traditional Greek virtues, courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. While offering an extensive discussion on the virtue of wisdom, Kallenberg's failure to mention the virtue of justice is deeply disturbing, he says. It's disturbing that it's almost purposeful. It's almost like he doesn't want to talk about it, is what I get from Hetzel here. Without justice as a moral norm, virtue ethics is susceptible to becoming a theological grammar of whiteness, the social power and privilege that white people gain through active participation in sinful social structures that mistreat and exclude people of color.
Right. And so he tells us that race matters in Christian ethics. Since every institution in the United States was founded to legitimate and perpetuate a white male power and privilege, faithful Christians should seek to understand how social structures benefit whites over people of color,
right,
where those structures came from, and how they are currently being administered. So race matters in Christian ethics.
So sorry, underground churches in China, if you're not talking about the privilege of white people while you're being hunted by the CCP, then you are doing virtue, or you're doing ethics incorrectly.
Yeah, he does mention when he's talking about the cell phone, he does mention the slave labor that's being done with regard to some of the Chinese folks and putting together some components of it. And he suggests that that's part of the critique that he's giving, that, we don't necessarily touch on that here, but I would suggest people refer to the article in the book, this particular chapter.
He does have a lot of citations, too, that he's trying to draw people to as well. So he uses his space well, I do believe, with footnotes to help offset them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He used lots of footnotes. Yes.
And finally, fasting from one's smartphone may help cultivate one's personal piety. However, prophetic ethics reminds virtue ethicists that personal piety alone is unable to materialize God's justice in the world. So again, he wants to focus on justice being a virtue here that he believes is absent from the article that he's responding to. And so he's saying that these missed areas of opportunity to talk about things like the good that he believes that is being drawn out of things like fasting doesn't hit far enough. And so it's not just fasting for the purposes of self-reflection, but that self-reflection is to be utilized to motivate you to carry out a greater change within the world. And for him, that's the church going out and doing those things, but also understanding your power and privilege within the confines of being able to utilize your power for good, and that's to affect marginalized people.
Right.